Those were some good claps. Gamers, today we're back with another tier list. But this time, we're doing unique units tier list. Obviously, we've had 4 variations, 2 new civs. So I figured might as well. Now, there's a lot of stuff in here. And Twitch chat is going to help me because I don't know all the icons. Now, there's some upgrades here that we'll see if we're going to include them or not. So what am I going to base this tier list off? You know, if you can make like a Donzo in age 1, 2, 3, and 4, what am I going to base it on? I'm going to base it as an overall unit, how usable the unit is in the current meta at the top level, and its peak. When Donzo is at its best, how good is it? Does that make sense? So again, at its peak performance, at its peak timing, whatever you want to call it, how usable it is in the current meta, and just how good, in general, the unit is, in my opinion, assuming like, you know, everything. Now, I do want to put a disclaimer, because there's always people with some lack of understanding of these Civ tier lists. I am not making a tier list of 10 Donzos versus 10 crossbows. This is not what this is. I'm sure there's videos like that out there, but I am not comparing damage of units. I am not comparing which units would win against which units. I am making a tier list on how good the units are in the meta overall to be used. So we have S plus tier. By the way, I'm just gonna put S plus. Probably needs a nerf. S tier is like really good unit, but I don't think needs a nerf necessarily. So that's how, just so you know. And then these other ones are obviously, you know, down the ranks. Let's get started with Donzo. I think Donzo, S tier, very, very good. I'm not gonna say the best spearman because it is a kind of like a unique unit. I mean, it is a unique unit, but it does throw spears. You can one-shot a lot of the cavalry before the fight starts. You can even one-shot archers. You can one-shot villagers with the Donzo spears. I love Donzos. It's a very good unit. First S tier. Camel archers are next. C tier. Maybe even D tier. Camel archers are too expensive at any... I mean, in Imperial, they're decent actually. But up until that point, they're pretty useless. And the funny thing is, even if you reach Imperial, recently camel riders, I don't know when this was actually, their cost changed from food gold to food wood gold. So camel riders cost less gold. And in Imperial, if you're playing Abbasid, you would prefer to just have camel riders in mass than camel archers. So I think, you know, before all the new civs, camel archers were pretty good in Imperial, but then they also got nerfed and stuff like that. And I think right now they're just too expensive and not good. Maybe even D tier. We will see. Camel rider, I'll put in B tier. Camel rider, like I mean, I just talked about it. It's just better camel archer. I know they do different types of damage, but you want camels to usually debuff the enemy cavalry. But camel riders can actually be mastered Imperial because they have so much HP. So, love that. Camel Lancers. Camel Lancers are an interesting unit because the way they work, the way Camel Lancers work is very interesting. It counters the other cavalry, but the melee charge, so if you haven't watched my micro video, you can check it out, how to do a charge with cavalry in melee. But their melee charge is not as good because the way their charge works is the longer the distance between, or the longer you're charging, you're kind of building up damage. So the high-end damage of the Camel Lancer charge is a lot more damage than a Knight, but the minimum is lower. And this is kind of interesting because they are better in some situations, but not in others. Like if you've been fighting for a while, and you want to do a melee charge, the melee charge is pretty meh. But because they can actually hunt down the other knights, you don't want to enter the knight versus knight battle against Ayubid because of that reason. And not only they, you know, debuff your cavalry for reduced damage, but also they will be able to charge up to them 100% because their charge is much longer. So you won't be able to outrun them. Next one is going to be, I'm going to put Cannon in A tier. I think Cannon's great. I mean, JD and French both have it, right? Those are the only civs. And I think cannon's great. If you guys don't know, it does more damage than a bombard. And it also doesn't need a setup. If you also make royal cannons, they absolutely demolish keeps. I don't know if you've ever seen a like 3 royal cannons hitting a keep. They kill it very quickly. And I think they're just great unit. They have a unique thing in not needing to, like set up. They don't need to set up. They can just poop, shoot, and move away instantly, which I think is very, very good. And I think they're just a very, very good unit. Most of the time these days, you don't really make bombards as much, but I feel like whenever you play JD or French, you always do go bombard, or you always go cannon. Next one we'll be talking about is going to be, what do we do? Let's do this one. These are the Ayubid Dervish, which are the monks, and I think they're great. I think they're really, really good. They provide a lot of healing. They're fast as fuck, boy. They look cool, so I give them an extra point on that. Together with warrior monks, actually I'm going to give them 8 here. Together with warrior monks, they are very, very good. They're very fast. They're very fast to take relics, and they have a unique ability to activate AoE healing, and if you're holding the relic, they heal more. So they're very good at healing up your army, even in late game, because you can activate that AoE healing, so love that. Let's see, what else? You know what? I have to move this a little bit like this. Yeah. Desert Raiders. Now, Desert Raiders are an interesting one. I think that's a Desert Raider at least. Desert Raiders are an interesting one because I think Desert Raiders are very useful at certain points in the game, but overall they're not like, well, you want to go Desert Raiders, right? If you are playing Ayubid and you want to debuff the enemy cavalry, you go for like 1 or 2 Desert Raiders, or you're just going to have Camel Lancers, which is now the meta. But actually, Desert Raiders in Imperial are quite strong. They have like, someone in the chat knows probably, but they have ridiculous melee armor. Like 15 or something, 12, 15. It's crazy. And also your infantry buffs them, right? 13, yeah, it's crazy. Like that's so much armor on one unit. So they have that opening with military wing and feudal where they're quite good, where you can harass your opponent, but you don't really mass them. And then in Imperial they have a place where they're pretty good, but overall they're just a little bit meh, you know. I also forgot that dervishes also debuff the enemy cavalry. Next one we'll be talking about are going to be Janissaries. Boom. That's the first S+. I mean, I don't know what to say. This unit needs a nerf. But yeah, Janissaries are absolutely broken, and they have been for a while, and they should be nerfed. Next one we'll be talking about are Ghulams. Ghulams are okay. You know, Ghulams are like a weird mix of man-at-arm and like wannabe damage dealer. And I would prefer, like whatever civ I play, if I had to choose, I would probably prefer to have, when you play Abbasid, you kind of use them to tank, right, for your archers with composite bows. So them doing bonus damage compared to the other man-at-arms is cool, but it's kind of not really needed because your majority of your army strength comes from ranged units. So I think they're okay. There's some strong cheeses you can do with Ghulams, but other than that, not great. Next unit we'll be talking about is the Arbalètrier, which is the French and JD crossbow. This is a super, super strong unit. Super, super strong. And in mass, it can absolutely demolish everything, except maybe mangonels. Even melee units, because they have high melee armor. They're very good units. Very, very good. Next one we'll be talking about is Lens Connect. I'm going to put them in A tier. Now, I think Lens Connect are very good. I don't think they are S tier necessarily because they are very, very squishy. But I do still think they're a great unit and they have a lot of potential. But you need other units to make them good. You know, you can't just make Lens Connect and hope that you're going to kill everything. You need other units to kind of activate them to tank for them, and you need like 10 plus so they can kind of swarm in between everything else and get the hits off before getting targeted. But if you can get them, and if you can mass them, they're incredibly strong. And especially in Imperial, if you have a lot of gold, it's incredibly hard to micro against them with any units, because, you know, once there's 100 units on the field, you're not going to be able to target fire each one of them and kill them. So pretty sure that icon is gilded. I'm counting this one as HRE. We'll see. If I swap them out, then yeah. But I'm counting this one as HRE one. Great Bombard. I mean, let's just put it right there. S+. Do I need to say anything? It requires million Springald shots to kill, and it needs a nerf. Next one we'll be talking about is Shinobi. Not great. They are used on water maps, but there's so few water maps, I feel like... I'll put them in B tier. I think Shinobis are very strong on water maps, very, very strong, but most of the time they're just complete crap. But then on water maps they're really strong. But overall, it's like, not even on water maps long term, it's like the first 5-6 Shinobis, they do their thing, and after that you don't make them at all. You know what I mean? So it's not even that you're massing them on water maps or something. You just make like a couple, disable a couple of dogs, get water control, and then you're out. And they're very good for that, but other than that, they're pretty bad. Next unit we'll talk about is the Bald Monks. Now, the Bald Monks are not very used. Like, I think Bald Monks are, obviously they're unique, a religious unit where they can pick up relics and they can also do damage. They can't heal other units, but they can heal themselves. And they're very strong. Like, you can send them on their own to pick up relics. And if there's like a horseman or something, they can just beat up the horseman, or beat up the feudal men-at-arm, or beat up, you know, whatever. Yeah, I might have to put Shinobi here, actually. And that's very good. Obviously not every time you need that, but it's good to be able to send your monk and not have to worry about, like, it dying to a spearman or an archer, like, because, you know, you can just turn around and kill it. Next unit we'll be talking about is Nest of D's. Nest of D's, S tier, love Nest of D's nuts. Hey, Totter. We got Totter right here. I think Nest of D's is really good, and obviously the recent siege change where now it takes 3 shots to kill Nest of Bees, or 4 if it's a clockwork, is very nice. So, what are these called? Ozotsu. They're A tier, you know. They're pretty good. They used to be S+, and then they got nerfed quite a bit because they were killing absolutely everything. But since then, they did get nerfed. They're very good. They provide for an interesting playstyle with Japanese, where you don't need siege. You can just make Ozotsu if you made that landmark. But yeah, they're good units. Nothing amazing, but they do have their use. And right now in the meta, if you go Japan and Imperial, you definitely go for this landmark. So, yeah. Next unit we'll be talking about is, I think this is Varangian Guard. I know a lot of people are going to disagree on me, with me on this, but I think Varangian Guards are a very, very strong unit. I've been thinking this for a while, and recently I've been playing more Byzantines, and winning games with just Varangian Guards is always funny. Now, Varangian Guards in Castle are not that good, because men-at-arms in Castle are usually used to tank, where their role changes in Imperial. They go from a unit that's supposed to tank in Castle, but then it doesn't have much going for it, and it's kind of expensive, to where you have a lot more gold in Imperial, and then they also get movement speed when they activate the ability. You can also activate Berserking for more damage, because you can close the distance. And there's not as many archers on the field, so the -4 armor that you get from activating ability is not that big of a deal anymore. Whereas in Castle, there's still a lot of archers on the field. Next unit we'll be talking about is... I don't know where to put Pow Pow, because, I mean, it's a great unit. I'll just put it in A tier. Like, Pow Pow, you see it very rarely, but it is a good unit, right? There's nothing wrong with it. It has massive range. Like, it might be even S tier in what it does. You just don't see it very often. I'm gonna put it in S, actually. You just don't see it very often, and we also don't... Now I'll put it in A tier. We also don't have a lot of games where we have this siege, like, keep, and then we're just trebucheting each other's keeps. That doesn't really happen anymore. The game is a lot more fast-paced. So, they're not used as much, but when they are used for its purpose, they're very, very... Next unit... Mangudai. I mean, do I need to say? I'm not even... Like, what do you want me to say? It sucks. It's decent in Imperial, but until then, it is absolutely garbage. Next unit we'll be talking about is going to be Sipahi. I think this unit is way too strong. I will say, there's an interesting thing. I think... I've talked about this before, but these three are like the deadly trio in Imperial. You don't need anything else in Imperial. Now, if you were to nerf, let's say, Janissaries, then Sipahis would be A tier, and maybe Bombers would be A tier. Probably still S+, let's be honest, for Bombers. But if you nerf Janissaries, then Sipahi wouldn't be as strong. But, I think, combined, and in its current state, I think Sipahi is absolutely fucking wild. And again, if one of these or both of these were to be nerfed, I think Sipahi would be S tier. Maybe it is S tier, actually. I don't know. Nah, I think Sipahi, the range of the unit is crazy to me. So the reason why, one of the reasons why Ottoman is so strong is because when enemy makes Springolds, usually you have to make Springolds. But because Sipahi has so much range and it has attack speed activation, you can just right-click on the Springold, and even if there's Spearmen around it, you can just hit above it, and you can kill the Springold. And for that reason, it's pretty good. The next one we'll be talking about is, let's do Ghazi Raiders. S tier. Love Ghazi Raiders. Very good, very strong. They can do a pretty good job against Men-at-Arm. They actually crap on Men-at-Arm. They beat Archers. They have high base damage, so they're okay against Spearmen too. They are a bit more expensive, and I think they're a bit slower, but very strong unit, and they make Delhi what Delhi is. Very good. Very good. Next one, let's see. Do we got something spicy? Longbows, S tier. I mean, what is there to not love? They're very microable at the top level. They're very strong. They're very strong in Feudal, very strong in Castle. You can avoid mangonel shots with them if you just keep max range, which is very annoying for the opponent. And in Imperial, when they get the ability, they're very strong. So, love longbows. Love longbows. Alright, the next one we'll be talking about is javelin throwers. And we'll put them right here next to Donzos. I think javelin throwers are one of the strongest units in the game, especially at the competitive level. And part of the reason why I think Byzantine does, or is good, is because you can make javelin throwers in Feudal together with Limit-Tenay, and just creates a very, very powerful combo. Now, javelin throwers are probably, if not the hardest unit to use, because you require a lot of micro-target firing the ranged units. But if you can do it properly, they go from like mediocre units to just extremely, extremely strong. So, Zuginu, it's an S tier. I was thinking, like, do they need a nerf? I don't think they need a nerf. I think they are really, really strong. Maybe even the strongest out of this lineup of S tier. But I don't think they necessarily need a nerf. They're very strong. If you played against China or Jushi's Legacy, they mow down everything once you get the critical mass of like 40. Very good, but yeah. Next unit I'll be talking about is Limit-Tenay. And, well, I've been saying this for a while, and I'll keep saying it. Unless maybe one day they get changed, but I think Limit-Tenay are way too strong. They have been nerfed to... They take 40% reduced damage from range from 50, and I think it's still way too much. Spearmen killing archers in Imperial to me is a bit nuts, so They also reduce the damage of like hand cannoneers against them and stuff. It's not just projectiles, so they're very good. Let's just say that. Next one we'll be talking about is going to be... Wait, isn't this Mangudai? Why is it age 3 here? Is it supposed to be a Horse Archer? Yeah, I think this is Rus Horse Archer because it's age 3. I think Rus Horse Archers are actually pretty okay, and I'm a bit surprised that it's not as used as good as it is. I don't think it's overpowered. I don't think it's like the meta, but there's some really interesting openings. If you rush castle with Rus and then you mass Horse Archers, they're very cheap and they're very mobile. And I've played against a couple of players that love using them, and it's very annoying dealing with them, and they do good amount of damage. So I'm surprised we don't see them more. Maybe the most surprised about out of all the units why we don't see them more. Next unit we'll be talking about, now this is the Ona Musha. Honestly, I haven't made this unit in a while. I'm not gonna lie. Apparently they fixed where the Bannerman like now actually properly applies to them. I haven't made them in a while. I think they're probably okay. What problem with Onas is... This is the problem with Onas. You don't really need to make them. And this is why. You make crossbows to deal with man-at-arms. Now, why doesn't HRE make crossbows? Well, for the same reason you don't make Onas. Because your man-at-arms, aka samurais, beat the other man-at-arms. Now, there are some matchups, such as against HRE, where Ona Mushas are very good, but in most other matchups, you can just spam samurai in order to deal with them. If the enemy goes man-at-arms, spam samurai. If the enemy goes knights, you go spearmen. So Ona Mushas are kind of unnecessary. It doesn't really fit the playstyle, and I think that's not what Japanese needs. In a weird way, Ona Mushas would be a lot better if they were like anti-archer horsemen or something like that. Like if they had like long range, like, I don't know, not longbow range, but like some kind of longer range and they counter archers. That would fit Japanese a lot more. But right now they just kind of overlap with what Japanese units already do and what the units already excel at. So if you can get a good amount of them, like 10, 15, and you have the Bannermen, they're actually very good and annoying to deal with. Kind of like Horse Archers, but they also kill Knights. So that's pretty nice. French Knights. I think French Knights are alright. You know, they're not overpowered. They're good. You know, back in the day, French Knights were the strongest knights in Imperial. They are not anymore, not even close. And they are still the strongest knights in Castle if you go for Royal Institute and get Royal Bloodlines. But in Imperial, the Rus Knights are better. The OOTD Knights are better if you want to count those. I think there's some other knights that I would rather make. I would rather make Mounted Samurais as knights in Imperial. So I'm trying to think, is it even A tier? I'm not... Like, what do they have? They can charge and heal? I'll put them in B tier. I don't think they're that great. I don't think they're that great. Because I just thought of Mounted Samurai, and I cannot put Mounted Samurai and Knights in the same tier. It just doesn't make sense. Where are Mounted Samurais, by the way? Is this Mounted Samurai? I think it is. Mounted Samurai, as we're talking about them, A tier. I think they're very good. There are some openers with Japanese where you go fast caster rush into Mounted Samurais, and they're kind of annoying to deal with because they got the Samurai shield that pops up every 8 seconds out of combat. So that's very nice, but... And they're very strong. Well, actually, I'm going to put... You're right. Twitch chat is right for once. The French Knights can two-shot villagers, which is quite big. That's probably their biggest strength. I'm going to put them in A tier. But yeah, Mounted Samurai, very good in Castle. Very good to spamming Castle initially, but you probably don't want to make your whole army just Mounted Samurai. You want to transition to something else. And then in Imperial, having the mounted samurai shield and being able to negate like a hand cannoneer attack is very, very strong. So, love that. Oh my god, we got so many more. Alright. Streltsy. Surprisingly, Streltsy A tier. Now, if you're playing against pure melee comp, S+, right? But there's usually other units involved, and there's usually ranged units, and there's usually mangonels. And Streltsy have lower attack range, which makes them susceptible to a lot of their counters, right? Whether it's archers or mangonels or keeps or whatever else. They are very strong, but I feel like the whole era of you just spamming Streltsy and just you're unbeatable is kind of not there anymore. They have same as normal hand cannoneer. Are you sure about that? Is it not lower? I thought it's lower. It always feels like they're too close to the enemy. I might be wrong with that one. They are cheaper than hand cannoneers, right? And they do have attack speed if you stay there for 10 seconds, which is very hard to pull off, like I said, unless, you know, you stand for 10 seconds there unless you play against melee units, which is pretty hard. I'm not sure where to put them actually, because it feels wrong putting them in S tier, but maybe they are S tier. I just don't see them that often in Imperial. Like, they are made, but they're not. I don't feel like, oh, he lost the game because it got to Streltsy kind of point. We'll keep them there for now. Maybe I'll move them to S. We'll see. Grenadiers. I'll put them in C tier. They have too many problems. They have way too many problems. Their biggest problem is probably how much they cost and how hard they're to get to. So again, remember, this tier list is not how much damage stuff does, right? If you have 100 of them, they're very good, but good luck getting 100 of them. And they're not very often used in games. If you're playing China, you're going to be spamming hand cannoneers because they have very good hand cannoneers. And if you're going to play Jushi's Legacy, you're gonna, you know, make the crossbows and then make Imperial Guards or something like that. But they're very expensive. Okay, we'll do Streltsy S tier, Musafati Gunners A tier. Now, I do think Musafati Gunners are actually pretty strong. Don't think they're stronger than Streltsy, but depending how you use them, they can be as good as Streltsy or like be S tier. The reason for that is if you have the landmark, the keep landmark that gives Musafati Gunners what is it called? First strike, I think it's called, where they can hit for like over 100 damage or something, or maybe 90 damage, 100 damage, I don't know, from stealth, which is really, really strong. So you can use that ability to its full potential. It's incredibly strong, but overall they're okay, I think. They can also stealth even without the landmark, which is pretty good. And the thing is, most of the time you do make Musafati Gunners, they are with these stealth landmarks, so you should be having that. I'm gonna put them in A tier actually. I think if you don't use the landmark, they're just like average hand cannoneers, right? But if you do use the landmark somewhat decent, I think they're A tier. All right. Next one. This is the Warrior Monk, right? Warrior Monk I'll put in A tier. Now, Warrior Monk is very hard to use, but if you can use them well, and I feel like rarely anybody does that, I feel like they're S tier. So you have Dervish and Warrior Monks, which are, I'm trying to think, they're two best religious units. They're both cavalry, they can run really fast, get relics really fast, which is really nice. Dervish debuffs the enemy cavalry, can heal. Warrior Monk can heal, but the most important thing is the Warrior Monks, when they auto attack, they can give all the army nearby bonus damage, and I think armor as well, which is very underestimated, I think, and very underused. And there's even upgrades to improve those, but if you've ever seen this, Warrior Monks in Imperial with mass archers is actually really strong. It makes your archers do like +3 damage, if I remember correctly. And then with incendiary arrows, they're nuts. So, but they get A tier just because they're cavalry, basically. Next unit is going to be... Kashyyyk is pretty good. I don't think Kashyyyk is necessarily good against other cavalry, but the role that Kashyyyk fills for Mongols is very good, and it does what it needs to do, and it helps Mongol defend the trade and all that. Kashyyyk and Imperial are pretty decent. I feel like Kashyyyk probably lacked the most in Castle, weirdly enough, because then every Civ gets access to knights, but your knights are kind of weaker. And then not every Civ has knights or Kashyyks in feudal, so that's why Kashyyks are pretty good in feudal, pretty good in Imperial, and then in between, if you're looking for like strong units to tank for your army, they're not it. You know, they're not it. But overall, what they do and what they're supposed to do, very nice. Palace Guards, oh no, not Palace Guards, sorry, Samurais, S tier. I think they're very good. I think they're just very, very good. They're very tanky. They are very good at dealing against enemy infantry. And part of the reason why HRE is played like, or Japanese are played like HRE, because they have strong men-at-arms, which is the samurai. They can mow down to a lot of things. So, I think it's very good. It is expensive. It does require a lot of upgrades to kind of activate, but once you do, love that. Next unit, this might be a shocker, Ona Bugeisha, S tier. That unit is nuts. If you've ever watched my stream, mass Ona Bugattis, as we like to call them, in Castle Age is nuts. They kill everything. And I mean everything. So I love them. Feudal, they're okay. Imperial, they're okay. I think in Imperial you would prefer to just make Samurai, but in Castle, goddamn, they're strong. Yeah, the tools tip says they get countered by archers, but in reality, if you have enough of them, they kill everything. So, maybe not knights, but so knight archers probably pretty good for them, or against them. Next unit that I'll be talking about is going to be Japanese archers, which I don't know what they're called. And they are, they're not very good. I think these are Yumi archers, right? Now, I've talked about this many times, but I think the problem with them is you need too many things to make them as good as other archers. And yes, they have extra movement speed, which is cool, but it just takes too long to activate them. And once you do, they're pretty cool, but I feel like Japanese, again, because of Samurai, because of Ona Bugeishas, you don't really need archers in the first place. Next archers we'll be talking about are the OOTD archers. And I'm going to have to give them S tier. OOTD archers are absolutely wild. They are absolutely wild in Feudal Age. They're even more wild in Castle Age. And they're probably the only archers that I make in Imperial pretty frequently. They're very, very good. Very strong. Their attack speed is very strong. The damage is very strong. Love them. OTD crossbow, S tier as well. Their crossbows are incredibly strong. Now, I can't remember exactly how their stats go, but I know they have bonus range. And because of their high damage, they just mow down everything. They're very, very strong units. So if you're playing OTD, you definitely want to be including ranged units as well. So yeah, and it can also kill siege, yeah, if you have the upgrade. True. Next unit we'll be talking about is the JD keep thing. What do they call it? Jean Champion. I think Jean's champions, I think they're okay. They're not, I ain't too impressed, I gotta say. They also received the nerf, right? Together with JD, where you need to upgrade them to their original state from what it used to be. Now, if you guys don't know, they do bonus damage against Spearmen, which is like, it's good, it's very strong in Feudal, but if you gotta pick against which unit you're gonna do bonus damage, doing bonus damage against Spearmen is like probably lowest on the list there, you know? They are very cheap, that is true, but they also are very hard to get to. Now, if you were able to produce them from barracks, they would be very good. I would probably put them in A or S tier because they're cheap, they're very good, they're armored, they're like men-at-arms. What is the problem? The problem is you make them from keeps. Now, let's say you have 3 keeps on the map, which is a lot of keeps, by the way, in this day and age, right? 3 keeps is a lot of keeps. Even if you were to spam produce them from keeps, you cannot really get crazy amounts of them, right? You cannot really, in Imperial, you cannot really rely on them to counter the Spearmen. That's the problem. And then if you are going Mass Knight, you cannot just make Jean's Champions to counter the Spearmen. They're kind of like addition to your army, but I almost never ever see anyone like do some kind of strategy with their rush keeps and go Jean's Champions. I actually tried that, and it just went horrible because I needed to invest so many resources into a keep to just produce one at a time. But they are good if you have them. I feel like they're a lot better if you think about them as something you get free from a hero rather than something you produce. So, yeah. All right, next unit we'll be talking about, this is the Jushi's Palace Guard. Jushi's Palace Guard, I'm going to put them in A tier. I am not rating this off of Feudal Age, I am rating this Castle and Imperial. No one's making Palace Guards from Jushi's Legacy in Feudal because they're very expensive for Feudal Age and their stats are not great. But in Castle, as normal Palace Guards, they're very good. And in Imperial, they also get additional bonuses. So, yeah, they're a nice unit, but not too strong. Next one, we'll be discussing... what unit is this? Oh, this is Cataphract? Really? D tier. Now, I know, I can already hear... I can already hear the gold players. Cataphracts are the strongest cavalry in the game. No, they're shit. They're terrible. They're expensive. There are better units to make if you're if you're playing Byzantine. Why would you make Cataphracts? Why don't you make Limitane or Varangian guards? You know, they're just not good. And again, I know this is like the most controversial opinion. I know, Reddit posting comment. I know. Listen, I want to make it clear. I am not talking about a Cataphract versus one unit. I'm not talking about 10 Cataphracts against 10 Cataphracts. I am not talking an FFA where you can make 130 Cataphracts versus 50 villagers, okay? I am talking about competitive Age of Empires and their use. What is the biggest downside of Cataphract? Go on, chat. I believe you got it. What is the biggest downside and why they suck? The biggest downside and why they suck is because they have no charge. That's it. That is terrible. Now, it has this crap ability where you charge through units. It has its uses, yes, but in high amounts. Like if you have 20 Cataphracts, it's good. But if you have like 3, it's shit. It's useless, it charges in a line, it barely does any damage. They're good to jump on siege units. Thumbs up for that, they're great for that. They're great if you're playing like some kind of game where you have unlimited amount of resources and you can just spam Cataphracts and Varangian guards. Sure, they're great there. But in most games, you will not see one at the high level. Having charge is very important, not only to micro your units around and get around, but also doing charge damage is a big part why people make Lancers or Knights in the first place, and Cataphract doesn't have that. So, I'm sorry. In my opinion, they suck. If you think they're great, thumbs up. Keep making them. Gilded Knights. If you can use Gilded Knights properly, they're probably S tier. If you have like super good micro, and if you can keep them up, they're S tier. But the downside and the benefit of them being so high HP and so high damage, that's great. But the downside is if you miss micro and you lose it, you're losing a lot, right? Especially early on in Castle, if you lose a knight, Gilded Knight, it is awful. But if you can use them properly, they are very strong, and they can have a lot of impact on the game. So yeah, I love Gilded Knights. I think they're very strong. Gilded Spearmen. S tier. Love them. I think Gilded Spearmen are one of the best things about OTD. You can actually use them as a raiding unit to burn enemies' farms. And the amount of damage that you can do to cavalry with Spearmen is crazy high. Like, if the opponent miss micros and you get a brace on the knight or horseman or whatever in feudal, that thing's dead, you know? So I think it's very strong, and their base damage is very high, and they're obviously cheap because they require only food and wood. Cheap as in they don't need gold, right? So I think OTD Spearmen are great. Now, one thing you might be wondering, just to clarify this one thing, why is OTD so bad? It's not bad Civ, but why is it so bad if it has so many units in S tier? Because the OTD problem isn't the strength of the units, it's the economy and the amount of units compared to their stats. I've talked about this, but yeah, the units themselves are strong, but when you gather all up as a Civ, they have some other issues. Man-at-Arm from OTD, I'm gonna put it A tier, and I'll explain why. I don't think they are as good as HRE Man-at-Arm, because I know it's a different, it's a variant Civ, but the fact that they don't have maces and the extra damage upgrade is very noticeable when you play games. They're very tanky, yes, but they're very easy to kite with crossbows. They're very easy to just move away from. Remember that OTD also does not have marching drills. What is the movement speed called? So they're very kiteable. They don't have maces, so they actually don't trade too well against knights, where HRE Men-at-Arms can trade with knights pretty well for their cost. Against other Men-at-Arms, they are okay, but HRE Men-at-Arms crap on other Men-at-Arms. And then, like I said, they can be just kited. And in my opinion, they are a tank unit. But in a way, all OTD units are tanking units. You know what I mean? Because they have a lot of health. And OTD, because the units are twice the supply, you can't really cover your army to protect them with Men-at-Arms. So they're kind of in this between of like, we're ultra tanky, but you can also just go around us. If they had Men-at-Arm upgrade, or the Heavy Mace upgrade, they would be really good. But yeah, their unique upgrade, the I don't know what's it called, the one that gives reduced damage when they drop below 20%. Love that upgrade. It's very strong. But you also don't go for mine work every game. So if you don't have that, they're even worse. Next thing is Musafati Warriors. S tier. Musafati Warriors, I think, are a great unit. Very underappreciated in a way. I think Musafati Warriors are the unit that keeps Malian very strong, because you cannot castle rush against them and make Men-at-Arms because of them. They're pretty good in Castle Age, but they're also very strong in Imperial Age because of the first strike ability that they get from the landmark, but they're also extremely cheap. And they're very easy to just mass, and even if you get poop trades, you can just keep going. So, I love Musafati Warriors. Alright, what is this, Sofa? I think this is Sofa, right? Yeah, I'm gonna give them A tier. I know that Sofas are very much used, but Sofas have been falling out of the meta a little bit, because So Malian used to be played like Castle Rush, and then you just spam Sofas and you go Farimba, or you go Cow Boom and then you just spam Sofas. But now we don't really see that as much anymore. We see people going for like Donzo Javelin Throwers into Archers, and some people go Donzo Javelin Throwers into Sofas. But Sofas they're very tanky and they're very good, but then once initially in Castle, when the Sofas start coming out, that's when they're the strongest, right? But the longer the game goes, I feel like they lose a lot of their value because they have a lot less HP. And then in Imperial, again, Sofas are okay, but there are other units from opponent that I feel like are better. And they kind of benefit a lot more. Maybe they are S tier, I don't know. They kind of benefit a lot. I'm going to put them S tier, fuck them. They benefit a lot more from just being able to mass rather than how good they are. And I feel like that's true for all the Malian units. Like, I have 4 Malian units in S tier because I do believe they're S tier. But the longer the game goes, their efficiency drops. But because the Malian economy is so good, you keep spamming them, and that makes them incredibly strong. Which is kind of a very confusing concept for me, because it's like, are they that good, or are they that good because you can spam them, lose them, and not really have to worry about them too much? Like, I might have to put both Musafaris and Sofas in A tier because of that. I'm not sure, because it also doesn't make sense that all their units are S tier. We'll see. What is this? Do we know? Yuan Raider? I'm gonna be honest, I haven't made a single one of these. Like, apparently they're supposed to, like, be a raiding unit, but they're in Imperial. So it's like, if I'm in Imperial, why don't I just trade and make Imperial Guards? Or why don't I just spam Palace Guards? Like, does 40 cheaper food really gonna affect my decision to make a way better unit than them? I don't know. Yeah, and they have bonus damage versus villagers. I think Yuan Raiders could be something if they were like in Castle or something, but I've never seen them in one-on-one games, I think. Maybe I've seen them once or twice, so yeah. They also cost gold, right? So it's like, if I have no gold, okay, put it this way. If I have gold, I'll make Imperial Guards. If I don't have gold, why would I use the little gold I have for Yuan Raiders? Why don't I just make Horsemen? It overlaps with already existing units, so I don't know. I think Imperial Guards are pretty good. They did get nerfed. I'll put them in A tier. They're very strong units, but they take very long to get to. I don't know. They're between A and B tier for me. I'm not sure where. I'll put them here for now. Like, they're very strong units, but it's one of those things where it's kind of like a Grenadiers. They take so long to get to. Once you get to them, they're good, but you also need a lot of gold for them. So, what is this? These are Malian Scouts. Yeah, I'm going to put them in A tier. I love Malian. I think Malian Scouts are really cool in Feudal. They are in Castle, because in Castle you're going to make Sofas. But Malian Scouts in Imperial are actually quite strong because they're basically horsemen that just cost food, and you can throw them at your enemy over and over and over, and eventually you'll get some damage done, and they kind of paid off because they're just food. Beasty loves Malians. I mean, Malian is a very strong Civ. It's a very strong Civ. I don't think they have any broken units, but they are one of the best Civs in the game. So, and the thing is, I just realized the reason we have so many units here that are Malian in S tier and A tier, because all their units are fucking unique. So of course we would have more units of them in this list, right? All right, next one we'll talk about. Let's finish up the Malian is the Poison Archers. I mean, Poison Archers are the best archers in the game. Longbows are technically that as well, but I think Poison Archers are great, even in Imperial. I think they're quite good. So again, another S. I'm thinking maybe Musafaris or Sofas are not a S. I'll probably go like this actually, because I think these two units are not necessarily strong by themselves. I think the reason they're strong is because they're spammable and they're massable. I think that's That's what's strong about them. Whether like Donzo and Javelin throwers or archers are just strong units on their own. Beasty realizing his bias. Well, you think other pro players are gonna be like, nah, Javelin thrower is B tier. It's not really biased if it's true. Or is it? I don't know. Okay, what do we have? OOTD hand cannoneers. S tier. Very strong. Very, very strong. Another very strong unit. You know what? I'm gonna put OTD spears in A tier, actually. I'm gonna put hand cannoneer from OTD in S tier. They have like double attack speed, basically, right? And they shoot invisible bullets, that is true. Chiropractor. Chiropractor is a cool unit, but it costs gold, and that's a pretty big downside. And they also have less health than normal rams, and rams are already nerfed, so... But they do have its uses, right? They're just not... I don't think they're necessarily better ram out of the two. You know what I mean? They're different and they're situational, but I don't think they're... Yeah, they might even be C tier. Maybe they are C tier. I think they have too low HP. I think that's their biggest problem. And the fact that they cost gold, not very nice. Alright, what do we have? These are the upgrades. This is just a crossbow. I don't know what crossbow this is. I think it's just a mistake. I think this is a normal crossbow. This is a bombard upgrade for China. I'm not gonna put that in. We don't know what this is. This is the English man-at-arms. I'm not gonna rate that. This is the Nest of Bees upgrade. Chinese hand cannoneers, we can do that because that is a massive difference and they are S tier. They're so fucking good. Chinese hand cannoneers are insane because they have more range. Love that. Archery maces, I mean, I'll just put them in S tier. I'm not gonna go through it too much. These are the Rus Knight polearm that gives them like 4 damage. I mean, it makes them basically the best cavalry because they have the most damage. Together with warrior monks, they can get some crazy stats, but yeah. Composite bows. I mean, composite bows from Abbasid are S tier. They're very, very strong. But Abbasid, as an Abbasid, is not a very strong Civ right now. Phalanx upgrade for Abbasid, also S tier. Their spearmen are nuts. Love that. This is the Mangonel for Ayubid. I actually think I'm going to put it here. I think it's very good because of its fire attack. I've been playing recently more Ayubid, and I've been using the fire attack to destroy buildings and farms. And they're actually very good at it. Very, very good at it. So if the enemy has stacked buildings, they're giga good to use against them. And then what do we have? What is this? This is a Fire Lancer. I can recognize that. Fire Lancers... I'm gonna put them in B tier. For team games, Fire Lancers are like S+ tier unit probably. For one-on-one games, you rarely see Fire Lancers these days, I feel like. You never ever see Fire Lancers anymore. It used to be like China, you age up, you get the dynasty that you need, and then you just make Fire Lancers, you go around burn buildings. But I feel like the meta, again, is too action-packed for you to have that many resources to save up for free. Now, there are some situations where you can still transition to Fire Lancers, but I feel like by then your opponent's probably walled off, and you would either just make hand cannoneer or palace guards. It's good, but it's not like dominant like it used to be. What is this? I can see it's a horseman of some sorts. OTD. Oh, that's right. OTD horseman. Funnily enough, I don't think OTD horsemen are good. I'm gonna have to give them like a C tier, and I'll tell you why. Early on, they're quite good. Popping 1 or 2 horsemen is very nice. There is something weird with them, though. They are a bigger model or something in the game. I can't put my finger on it, but they are harder to micro than normal horsemen. They are very, like, I don't know if it's the turn rate or something. They don't attack right. I don't know how else to explain it. If you played OTD and you played other Civs, then you will know what I mean. They're I think they either have a bigger hitbox, their model is bigger, their animation is different. I don't know what it is, but they're very weird to use. Yeah, they feel clunky. There's something wrong with them. And that's why I don't really like using them. And also, if you want to mass them in Imperial, like you would usually mass Horsemen, they're very expensive. Very, very expensive. So that's why I don't really like them, I'm going to be honest. Yeah, they're fine if you have like 2, 3, but once you get like to 6, 7, 8, you can't use them properly, I feel like. They're just too derp. I don't know what else to say. What is this? Unit? Oh, these are the JD Horsemen, right? Okay, this is a JD Horseman, which deals bonus damage against crossbows. Same reasoning. It's hard to make. That's it. It's hard to make. That's it. Now we got 2 elephants. Where's the third elephant? This is the hand cannoneer elephant, and this is the melee elephant. Where's the tower elephant? There are no Japanese bannermen. I mean, bannermen like Mechter are... Mechter is also not here. Mechter is an S tier. Bannermen are probably like S tier or A tier because of what they do. I think this is the hand cannoneer elephant. I mean, I think they're very good, but you can only make them from the landmark or make them. They slowly trickle in, so that makes them not very good. And then the melee elephant, the Melephant. The Melephant. I'm gonna put it in B tier. I know this might come as a surprise to a lot of people, but I think elephants are actually quite good. And I'm gonna put this as a ranged elephant because we don't have a picture for it. And I would put ranged elephant in A tier as well. If you guys don't know, Delhi is unironically one of the best civs in late Imperial because of the elephants. They are so incredibly strong. If you can get to like 40-50 minute Imperial and you have trade for elephants. They fuck up everything. They kill everything. So, yeah. Was Vanguard Rangers ranked? I mean, they're not... They're never even made. Like, Vanguard Rangers are D tier because they're too expensive. Same with Footmen. They're very hard to make and they're very expensive. That is my tier list right here. I don't know. We're also missing Gilded Lensconnect, by the way. But I would put Gilded Lensconnect here. I don't know if these are HRE ones or the OTD, but they would both be in A tier. And that is it. If you're watching this on YouTube, I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the unique unit tier list with some explanations. Obviously, I might be wrong on some of these things where it's like it's here instead of here, but you kind of get the picture. I think I'm probably the most correct, as in I believe the most in the S plus and S tier, and the D tier. A, B, C, maybe C is also correct. A and B, I feel like, you know, might be up and down a little bit, and maybe some of the things from A to S, S to A. That's it. You're watching on YouTubers. Twitch chat, can you all wave to YouTube gamers, please? Check me out on Twitch. I am probably live right now. The EGC tournament is starting soon. Make sure to check that out. And this video was recorded on 29th of February. So if you're watching this in like July 2027, I'm probably wrong about a lot of these things. Twitch gamers, let's keep going.